Good morning, everyone. How are you all?
Good morning.
Miss.
Good morning.
Good morning, Professor.
Good morning. I hope everything has been, everyone has been admitted. I think that Gisela Montiel was, you're here, Gisela. Have everyone been accepted?
Yes.
Okay. All right. There are more people coming, so I need a couple of minutes to be able to start with our presentations and the discussion for today's class, right? In the virtual class, I've posted document with a few examples that we will be using during the class. I'm not sure whether you could see that. We'll be showing the models or the sample texts on the page, but just in case you wanted to see them and to have a document by your side, you will find it there, okay?
Professor, is it in a book?
It's in the book, yes. And I also posted, we opened the quiz for you to work on it, and it's going to be open until 2:30 today, so that you have time to, of course, share the class and then work on it, right?
Professor,
It's ready now, I'm sorry. And after the class, I will be posting the document, the files that we discuss, so that you have some guidelines to follow and to continue analyzing those texts. And in case some people have not been able to join the session, they might find information there, okay? I'm sorry for that. I must have done something wrong very late last night, so sorry. Okay. Are we ready to start then? Any question, any comment? Okay.
No, ready.
Right. Okay. A few more people are coming, so I'll wait a couple of minutes and then I'll start. Okay, last week we started discussing, we worked on a revision of anecdotes, and then we gave another step into talking about exemplums, right? What do you remember about our ideas on exemplums? Yes, Luciano?
Exemplums involve a moral judgment.
Okay, all right. And what type of texts are they?
It's like an anecdote.
Okay, and what is an anecdote? What type of texts are they? Remember, are they narrative, descriptive, expository texts?
Narrative?
Narrative.
Yes, exactly, narrative texts, right? Remember that we said that it's part of what we call the family of story genres. So it's one type of story. And they involve a moral judgment, all right. A moral judgment on what, on whom, on what have we discussed about it?
In the characters and the participants or the events.
Okay, what about them?
We elaborate on someone's attitude or behavior.
Their actions.
About their feelings.
Not their feelings. We don't judge feelings, but we do judge attitude and behavior, right?
Okay.
Yes, is it okay? Right. The idea of setting the focus on emotions or feelings is done in anecdotes. And not that we analyze the feelings, but the person, people telling these stories, anecdotes, would share their actions, their activities, and share their emotional reactions to something out of the ordinary, disruptive they've been through. In the case of exemplums, as you've been telling us, again, we're telling a story, but instead of focusing on the feelings, emotions, we're going to focus on how the attitudes can be judged, interpreted in terms of moral judgment of those attitudes. In very broad terms, when we speak of a moral judgment, we consider whether something is good or bad, considering certain moral ethics in a society, ethics of behavior, or moral norms or rules in a specific society, okay, or in terms of human actions, human attitudes, okay? So we're going to start now with a presentation. Again, a slight revision. We're going to revise the two of the texts that we saw last week, and we will continue analyzing a few more and building up on this idea of exemplums, right? So I'll share my screen now. Tell me if you still see the screen if I move on. Second slide and a third one.
It did yes.
Move for me.
It's not moving now.
Okay. Not moving. Okay.
Moving.
Yes or no, you said?
Not moving.
Not moving. Okay. This is again something that I need to learn how to sort it out. How to sort out. Okay. So if we start with the analysis, we're going to revise a few ideas. We read and analyzed a couple of stories.
That is okay. Now we can see the second slide.
Yeah, but you also see the little slides on the right, on the left, right?
That's right.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I've tried to increase the screen, but yet it's not the presentation, so you won't see animations. We'll see just the plain slides. All right. This is one of the stories that we read last week. It's one of the one story on Henry Sugar's experience. It's an we adapted sections of this a previous anecdote written by a student and made this into an exemplum. And here we discussed a few ideas in terms of how the text is organized. Remember, do you need a minute to read it through? Okay. Can you all hear?
Yes. Yes.
This is part
Yes.
of Thank you. So this is part of the experience, or one of the stories within the bigger story about Henry Sugar, right? And here we selected a piece of Henry Sugar's life, and the narrator discusses what about his life and what about these events.
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Of course. What is the story about? What events in Henry Sugar's life are discussed, are narrated here?
Sorry.
Yes, who's talking?
I was talking, but someone raised their hand, so I let that person speak.
But Guillermina, I don't know who's the other person. I cannot see it on the screen. I'm sorry.
It was me, but I don't care.
Anna. Okay.
I prefer that she answer.
All right. Okay. So Guillermina first, and then Anna.
Okay. It's narrated when Henry is left out of the card games, when he finds the book, when he decides to start practicing this art called practicing, and well, his experience at the casino once he has his powers, and the moment he realized he doesn't enjoy that way of winning money, and the situation with the policeman who kind of tells him off on what he's doing.
Right. Okay. So, and where do you think the focus is? If here the policeman is introduced and he's
When he realizes that he doesn't like winning money every day and almost always, and when the policeman arrives and tells him that it's unplayful, that he is throwing money away.
okay. All right. So what has been criticized about his attitude? Wasn't he a generous person, trying to give the money away and give it to the people in the streets?
He was generous, but I think that he was quite unthoughtful, just as the policeman said, and that he would give that money to someone more needed, maybe. For example, in the story, then maybe to orphanages and stuff. But yeah, he was maybe unthoughtful.
Okay, orphanages, remember?
Orphanages.
Orphanages, right. Children without parents are called orphans. These places where they are kept are orphanages, right? Okay, good, very good. So he was generous, but the way in which he decided to give away his money was not the best, the most thoughtful way in which he could give out or give away the money, right? Good point. Now, the questions are, how is the story organized? Or how is the text organized?
First, we have an orientation. A few years ago, I was staying, so we have the characters, the time, and the setting as well. I mean, the place. William's, I didn't read, house. William Withem house.
All right, Santiago raised a hand. Yes, so we do have an orientation. We know we have some time reference a few years ago, whenever that is, where he was when he found the book, but then the place will change, right? We'll have below some other time reference. Yes, Santiago?
I think it's ordered in a chronological way.
Very good.
We don't have a specific time, but it's ordered.
Right. And you helped me highlight these expressions of time, such as a few years ago, after walking through the house, and then where, it's reference of place, but it's moving around the house, after reading it, after 3 years, and then we have one night. There is when the main incident is going to be discussed or introduced, right? What was out of the ordinary? Everything seems to be out of the ordinary, because we remember that Henry Sugar was not a person who would be devoted to or who would enjoy reading much. In fact, he chose the thinnest book possible from that library, right? And then this idea that he would read about a special story of a man who could see without his eyes, and he trained to be like him, right? So we may consider that all these elements are also disruptive, out of the ordinary, but we will focus on a special event or a series of events one night when he tested these powers, these special powers or talents that he's been able to achieve and developed. And we read here his actions at the casino, winning money easily, not enjoying that, and then the following morning throwing money out of the street. You said that there is moral judgment, there is someone criticizing his actions. What expressions does this person use to criticize his actions?
When the policeman told him that he was an idiot.
Good. He was an idiot, right? Quite a strong word. Any other expression?
Unthoughtful.
Unthoughtful, right. So remember that yesterday we spoke about the linguistic resources from the language, and this is what we mean when we need to concentrate on what elements from the language we need to use to be able to tell a story. And these are which ones? What resources from the language do we use, in this case, to express the moral judgment?
Adjectives.
Yes, and thoughtful. An idiot? Is that an adjective?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yes?
Maybe as a positive thing, the last sentence, that was such a good lesson too.
Yeah, such a good lesson. But that is an evaluation of the whole event, right? It's not necessarily moral judgment. This is the learning that he's received. Yes? And it's part of evaluative language. Again, we're using an adjective, a good lesson, or a noun phrase including an adjective. And it's, yes, evaluative language, but not precisely the moral judgment. He's talking about the whole experience as a lesson, part of the learning. Now, if we go back to the ideas of stories, what resources, what linguistic resources do we use to tell stories that are deployed here?
He's using reported speech, yes.
Reported speech towards the end, yes, very good. Anything else?
We use adverbs of time to indicate the cursing of time.
Yeah, the sequence. Okay, very good. To mark the time reference. Very good.
Yes.
Only adverbs? What are adverbs?
Not only adverbs, but I know how they are called. But for example, after 3 years, I don't know the name of that construction.
Okay, yes, I hear other voices, but I could not hear.
Here, expressions of time?
Expressions of time is a very vague expression that does not necessarily tell us in grammatical terms what elements from the language we are using.
I said find connectors.
Connectors, right?
They are connectors.
Which are connectors? Prepositions, all right. What's a preposition? We need to go back, past tenses. Okay, yes, thank you, Damaris. we need to go back to the box of grammar. When we saw adverbials, yes, we can use adverbs, but adverbs are words such as yesterday, today, tomorrow. Yeah. But after walking through the house is an adverbial clause because there's a verb, yes, and or a prepositional phrase through the house. A few years ago is also an expression of time, but how is it constituted? This is what you would need to check in your grammar notes as to what expressions we may use to refer to time reference, okay? After reading, after 3 years, prepositional phrases, adverbial phrases, adverbial clauses when there's a verb involved. One night, that's a noun phrase, okay? But they involve time reference, okay? Yes, the organization is chronological. We use these markers of time, and we also use past tenses. Someone mentioned this idea of past tenses. And when we need to comment on what people say, we use reported speech. And we also worked on that in our class yesterday, right? And I told you that I have posted in the I think I have now. I wonder whether I complete my tasks when I work on the virtual class. I posted some notes on reported speech. It's a link for you to check how to report questions in particular, which is also something difficult to do. Okay? Can I go on?
Yes.
Yes.
Another story that we saw was a story set in Botherrow, New South Wales. Remember, there was a field involved. It was set in the 19th century when a couple of white people living in Australia faced or had a special incident with Aboriginal people in Australia. So there are a few cultural elements involved. And we saw this story again on lighting the way. Do you remember what this was about?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. In this text, the context might be alien to us, but I think that the events are quite clear. The couple, the lady in the couple is somehow nervous because she's facing unknown an unknown context, unknown people, and she doesn't know whether it would be dangerous for them. But father or her husband tried to comfort her. Don't be afraid, he said, they will not hurt us. And the result is this special help lighting their boomerangs on one side, throwing them in the air to light the way for them. So the story closes with this line, it was a kindly action from the natives, right? So again, here we have an incident with events that are out of the ordinary, some disruptive events. We see some people's actions that are commented on, they are interpreted in terms of the moral action. Was it a good action or a bad action?
Good action.
Very good. If we compare these two stories, what would we say about them? One focuses, yes?
Yeah, one focus is on criticize the action and the other one to praise the action, because one action was seen as wrong, but the other one was nice.
Okay, another adjective, but nice?
Was kind.
Okay, all right. Okay. Positive. So one is seems to be negative and the other positive. One is an action or attitude to praise, and the other is an attitude to criticize or somehow condemn, even when he was generous, as you said, right? Santiago?
you wanted to say something?
No.
All right, thank you.
I have a question.
Yes, who's this?
Me, Guillermina.
Guillermina,
I
yes.
noticed that in the previous text, the evaluation is made from a character, let's say, of the story, but it's not the one who's narrating. And in the second one, the narrator is the one who makes who expresses the moral judgment. Is there a rule or something that there has to be any kind of moral judgment to be an exemplar?
Yes, it doesn't. The idea that in this case there's a narrator giving the sharing in this way the moral judgment, but she's not involved in the action. In the other texts, there are two, at least two participants, Henry Sugar and the policeman. Of course, there are the people in the streets, right, that receive the money. In this case, Henry Sugar is telling the story. The policeman is the person who evaluates his attitudes, or who interprets his attitudes and condemns him, criticizes him. And as the person who's telling the story is Henry Sugar, he is the one who shares this judgment, but it's the policeman words. He doesn't say, I was an idiot. He doesn't think of that as himself. He said, the policeman told me I was an idiot and I had been unthoughtful. Yes? So, okay. This story is told in first person, and the narrator, as a participant, would talk about his attitudes, but it's someone else telling him he did not act well, okay? And he's using these words. This is something that we don't often find, but because it's very difficult for someone to criticize or praise your own actions, right? It's not. Some people might do this. Oh, I was wonderful in doing this, or I was so wrong in acting in that way, right? It's not something common that you would do, but we may find it, and this is an example. So here, a participant telling the story offers this evaluation of his own attitudes, but someone else told him these words, and he's repeating those words. Is that clear?
Yes, thank you.
In the other story, the girl, Miss May Neville, is telling his parents' story, and he is telling us about this disruptive event and commenting on the Aboriginal people's attitude, right? As an outsider. She was not involved in the action, and as an outsider, she comments on this, on the people's attitude, right? And this is what we might be asking you to do more often, because it's more natural to criticize or to praise someone else's attitude rather than to criticize or praise your own actions and attitudes, right?
Okay.
I hope I've been clear enough. Was it
Yes.
Guillermina talking?
Yes,
Oh.
yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, a few questions or a few ideas to guide ourselves when we read stories or these type of texts, and when we understand them and then write on them. So we commented on the presentation of place and time of the story, in particular this last one, who the participants in it are, the expectations that arose at the idea of the context, the uncertainty, fear, nervousness. So the narrator is somehow preparing us to read something in the line of fear, maybe, right? So this the context is unknown. There is uncertainty. There is nervousness and fear. The events are narrated in the story, again, in a chronological way. There's a chronological organization of events. It's a small scene, a short scene, something happened in one night. Maybe they were only a few minutes, but it's very effective anyways. the introduction of the disruptive events, so how this normal course of events are altered. The expectations are those of fear. They fear probably an attack from the Aboriginal peoples, but the response is completely different, and this is unexpected, right? We paid attention to the tenses and the connectors used, and then the final interpretation of the events and the participants' attitudes. Clear so far?
Yes.
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 As we are always worried, or we always focus your attention on how you will write exemplums or stories or other text types, we focus on what we can do with the texts that we read. This example or this sample text is used by the linguists that we follow, as I told you last class, James Martin and David Rose, and they collected some stories from people living in Australia. But we can do work on stories with the material that we read in class, and obviously you can do this. You can tell these type of stories with your own experiences, reflecting your own experiences. Now, I would like to share some other story about Henry Sugar's first experience at a casino. And this is a story that one of our students wrote quite a few years ago, and we're using it as an example. So the scene might be the same as the one on the previous story on Henry Sugar. The story is a bit more extensive, and we will see how this works. Shall I read for you?
Yes, please.
Henry Sugar was a selfish, wealthy man who had never done a day's work. He was very fond of gambling and was lucky enough to find a book that would change his life. He learned about a man who used yoga techniques to see without his eyes. In time, Henry learned how to read playing cards from the reverse side and was ready to use his strategies at casinos. One Saturday evening, he got elegantly dressed to go to the Royal House in London. He was very fond of that casino and was a habitual member. Everything looked different this time. He cashed a check of £1,000 and walked along the different gaming rooms. After studying the roulette tables, he betted and won 300 and 600. Left the roulettes and moved to a to be able to sit at the dealer's left at one of the tables. He knew he could read the cards before they were played. After a short while, he had won very easily again. He was not excited, though. He could have won a lot more, but knew this would be enough for the night. And the story continues. He left the casino, walked the streets of London for some fresh air. An hour later, he drove back to his flat and went straight to bed. The following morning, he woke up late, saw the pile of money, and felt the urge to do something. He walked out into the balcony and started throwing 20-pound notes into the street and asked passerbys to keep them. In a while, there was a whole turmoil underneath his balcony. People were jumping, pushing, and yelling to catch some money. Everything was interrupted by his front door bell ringing. A large policeman bellowed at him as he was causing a chaos out into the street. Even when he had a lucky night and wanted to celebrate and give his money away, the policeman thought he was a stupid acting in such an unthoughtful way. Okay. So, what is this story about? Is it any different from the previous stories? How do we say this is a story? And why do we say that this is an exemplum?
But it is a story because it narrates the events that took place in certain time, and one character made those actions and shares those actions.
He did those actions, right? Very good. Very good. The character we're talking about in this case is Henry Sugar, and Yes, most of the action here focuses on that Saturday evening, right? That night or that evening. We have, as you see here, we have very brief introduction as to how he got the book and his powers, right?
Yes.
Any other idea you would like to share?
It's narrated in third person.
All right. Yes, very good. Different from the other one, which was narrated in the first person. Right, very good.
It is also more descriptive.
It's more descriptive in what sense? Is that Victoria?
Yes, it is me. Well, describes in a deeper way the actions and also the character.
Okay, very good. Very good, right? When you say that it describes the actions, what do you mean? It narrates different events more carefully or more extensively?
More extensively.
Right, right. Very good, very good. So the narration is probably more carefully planned. There are more elements, more events being narrated, described, as you said, but we should not confuse this with a descriptive text, right? Are we okay? Can you hear well?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes,
All right.
yes.
Right. Okay. Anything else you would like to comment on? So again, it's a story. There's chronological organization, right? You're right. It's told in third person, not first person as the previous one. Okay. There are more. There's a more detailed account of the events, as more inclusion of all the different steps that he followed at the casino, right? Playing at the roulette tables first, and then going to the blackjack room, and then what happened after he left the casino. Again, he was not happy, satisfied with what had happened. So the following morning, we have a few more events. Yes, who's talking? Agustina?
No, I wasn't.
This time is not, there is not, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Don't worry. Who is it?
We're both Agustina, so.
Okay, okay. You just tell me who you are and you talk. I need to shift screens to be able to see you. That's why if you simply tell me who you are, you just contribute to the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, here's Agustina. I was saying that in the previous there was an example, and in the end there was a reflection from Henry, and this time it's not that way.
Yes.
And there is not a dialogue between the policeman and Henry.
Good. Good. Very good. But the elements, the participants are the same. And is again, you say it's an exemplum, we believe, because there is this moral judgment, right? This comment on his actions. And is this comment on his actions again negative, or is it positive? Does he highlight the generosity in his attitude?
No, negative.
No. Again, it's
Negative.
a
It would be a negative thought.
Again, negative thought, right?
They're both quite similar.
Absolutely, yes. But
this one is more, maybe the events are more detailed, but it's similar to the other one.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Javier. So we have focused, or the person narrating the story has focused on what Henry Sugar did, what the policeman told him, and what that reflects in terms of moral judgment. It's not positive judgment, but negative judgment, quite a criticism of his actions, right? You said, I think it was Agustina, that there is no general or overall evaluation of the action, saying, I learned a lesson, it was quite a good lesson. Does this make it less an exemplum?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, because it has the compulsory elements, the compulsory stages.
Obligatory?
So, an example.
Obligatory, not compulsory, but obligatory. Okay, good, good. Yes. And this final evaluation as a coda would be something optional, an optional element, right? So, again, here we commented on the presentation of place and time of the story, the participants in it, the expectations that arose at the idea of the context and participants. He is excited and anxious to test his powers. And at the end, the feeling of achievement because he could win money very easily. So the events are narrated in the story in an organized way, in a chronological way. We also saw the disruptive event here, the events that alters the normal course of action. We expected him to be happy, satisfied, but he's not. And then there's more to these actions at the casino, and we see that he would feel satisfied when he throws money out into the street, but that causes another problem. And we finally see this criticism. What are the tenses and connectors used in the text?
In the past simple.
Past.
In the past simple, the sentences.
Okay, all past simple?
No, there are sometimes past perfect.
Very good.
By the way, good morning, Professor. How are you?
Good morning, good. Who's that, Camila?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you. Good morning, Camila. Right. So past tenses in general terms, simple past, past perfect. I'm not sure whether there is any continuous tenses in the text, no? Only the non-finite forms.
After studying, it's continuous.
Yes. Is it continuous? What verb form is that? After studying?
It's
a gerund or not?
In this case, it's a gerund. It would be after having studied the roulette tables. Yeah, it's a non-finite form. Yes, have we seen that in grammar or not yet?
Yes, but not in depth.
Not in depth. All right. What are the non-finite verb forms?
The bare infinitive.
And gerund.
Gerund. One more.
And what is the one? It's not the ing form. It's the gerund, so it's not.
Yes, it might be gerund or present participle, but there's one more form.
To infinitive?
No, you've mentioned the infinitive.
No,
gerund.
Yes, I said the bare infinitive, but I don't realize if
same one.
And I think the other one, Professor, is the ed participle.
Yeah, ed or en. It's a participle, past participle form, right?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Those are the non-finite verb forms, and they don't help us to identify what we're talking about. Sometimes what person we are talking about, because they don't have any key as to tell us who is the person doing that and when that happens. So they are used in these type of clauses, prepositional clauses or adverbial clauses, non-finite clauses as after studying the roulette tables. He bet it as giving time reference, right? Some other times we use the gerunds to express, they use as a nouns. Giving money to the poor is quite a generous attitude, right, or action. Giving money to the poor is a non-finite form used as a subject. Okay. You need to revise that or see that in your grammar classes. You learn how to use them. We use them in our stories. We don't only use the simple past verb forms, right? And also the connectors that we use, markers of time, are quite varied as we see here, right? And we're going to see the text having been intervened in a couple of minutes. As we have seen quite a few stories, we revise what we meant in technical terms in terms of exemplums. They also involve a disruption similar to anecdotes, but this disruption is interpreted. These actions are interpreted rather than reacted to in emotional terms. The type of attitude expressed in the interpretation tends to be a judgment of people's character or behavior. Again, the incident may involve behavior that is either admirable or damnable, positive or negative. So the ensuing judgment may either admire or criticize, praise or condemn these actions. All right? And as we have seen in many stories, we will try to identify some of the stages found in exemplums. Some of these will be optional, some others will be obligatory. On many occasions, we find the abstract announcing what the text will be about, the orientation, and more often than not, in fact, the orientation is an obligatory element, or at least an element that is always present, because that helps the reader or listener to learn to understand who are involved, where the action takes place, when they take place. Then the sequence of events, including a disruptive event, are called by these authors the incident. This is the disruptive sequence of events. And then the interpretation of the attitude, actions reflected in the incident. And as optional elements, again, we may find a reorientation and coda. Okay? So it's very important to understand that in the cases of exemplums, we will find an incident that is a disruptive event, out of the ordinary event, including an attitude that will be commented on. The interpretation, which is the moral judgment on these actions. There is no exemplum without an incident and an interpretation, or the expression of moral judgment. How do they work in the text? We find the orientation in this Henry Sugar, the text on Henry Sugar. The few lines at the beginning telling us who the character was. He was a selfish man. He'd never done a day's work, and he was very fond of gambling and was lucky enough to find a book that would change his life. So a special element in his story is mentioned, this idea of the book, where he would learn yoga techniques so that he was able to see without his eyes. Then
Also,
he was ready. Yes.
in the orientation, and give us like a little clue of what is going to happen, that he was ready to use his strategies at casinos. And I think that what is part of the orientation too.
Very good.
What is going to happen.
Later. Very good. Very good. Maybe you mean that this might work also as an announcement of what will come next?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Then the story continues with, when we find this one Saturday evening, the action starts running as when we set play to film a specific scene on a video, right? One Saturday evening, and we have more actions. And maybe this is what Victoria meant when she said that it seems to be more descriptive of the actions, because we see he got elegantly dressed, he was fond, he went to the royal house in London, he was fond of the casino, was a habitual member, and then all the steps that he took within the casino, cashing a check to get the tokens, walked through the different gaming rooms, he studied the roulettes, betted, won so much money, and then he left the roulettes, went to the blackjack room and bet there, played there, and won again. In both these, and in all the text, I've highlighted for you the character, Henry Sugar, how we trace the character, remember that we need to focus on that, how we comment on the character in this case by use of pronouns, he, repeating the person again, Henry, every now and then, to remind the reader who we are talking about. Then in red, the expressions of time, markers of time in the text, organizing the text in a chronological way. The verbs in red, processes, remember that we said that the processes would tell us what field we are talking about. Here we are not talking about an experience out in the fields in Australia or our actions on a weekend in the country, in the snow, or experiences with a sonda last week, but they are experiences at the casino. So the verbs, the processes used refer to actions on an evening in a casino. And then we continue. Incident goes on. He left the casino. The following morning, something else happened. He felt differently. He woke up late, saw the pile of money, and felt the urge to do something. He walked into the balcony and started throwing money out into the street. And we would finish this incident when we see people outside into the streets jumping, pushing, and yelling. So there's this turmoil, chaos out into the street, and someone knocking at his door. Here, the narrator has exposed this out of the ordinary sequence of events, this disruptive events. And an interpretation follows. This is again in the from the point of view of the policeman. Even when he had a lucky night and wanted to celebrate and he give his money away, the policeman thought he was a stupid acting in such an unthoughtful way. Okay?
Yes.
Yes.
So, as you saw at the beginning, I showed you a story in a block. I had to separate it into slides, but it's a single story. It's not separated within paragraphs. We have separated these paragraphs here artificially to be able to show you the different stages. But the story is a single story in a single paragraph. It's not long enough to be separated into different paragraphs. So I would like you to see this and remember this. When you start writing stories again, you should not separate them into short paragraphs, because each paragraph should have a single meaning, and there is a whole reason why we separate ideas into paragraphs, or paragraphs focusing on different ideas, okay? So,
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. What about the interpretation? What do we mean by an interpretation? When we know what the orientation is, what an abstract is, we know that this idea of the incident is that of the sequence of events, disruptive events, including an element or a set of actions that are out of the ordinary. And we include here this idea of the interpretation. What do we mean by an interpretation? We have said that the main focus of attention or the purpose of an exemplum is to share a moral judgment. So we judge people's attitude and behavior. We make a comment on how people act, how people behave at certain events. And we repeat this repetition of ideas so that we remember them more clearly. The idea of judgment is that we generally consider people's actions as being right or wrong, admirable or damnable. So our judgment may express either admiration in terms of positive comment or judgment of someone's attitude and behavior, or a criticism, negative interpretation of someone's behavior. Okay?
Yes.
And when we comment on judgment, we may use a set of ideas, expressions to comment on positive actions or negative actions. How do we praise actions? How do we condemn or criticize negatively people's actions? We said that in general terms, we speak of moral norms, of moral ethics in real life in different societies. We will be using mostly adjectives, and adjectives that, if we focus on the first column, how should we praise? So we may select adjectives that are typically used to refer to veracity, what is true in certain respects. So truth is the value that we are evaluating or commenting on. So we say that something is true, someone, truthful, honest, credible, frank, candid, direct, discreet, tactful. These are only a few. You may use more. The list might be very extensive, but these are only a few examples. So in terms of what is true, we may use these adjectives, right? So the value of truth, honesty is highlighted here. And we can also consider the idea of propriety in terms of ethics, whether something is good, morally good. So we can use expressions, or such expressions as good, moral, ethical, law-abiding, fair, just, sensitive, kind, caring, unassuming, modest, humble, polite, respectful, reverent, altruistic, generous, charitable. And the most frequent structure that we use is that of the verb be and an adjective or adverb. We saw that was a kindly action from the natives. Of course, the adjective here is used in a noun phrase. Or he was an idiot, that is in fact a noun, or he acted in an unthoughtful way, right? Commenting on this idea of what is ethically appropriate or not, right? If we go to the second column, we will see expressions that are used to comment or to condemn someone's attitude. An example also taken from Martin and Rosie's samples. He should have been the one that's bloody dead for what he did. That's a very strong comment on someone's attitude. He's commenting on people, policemen acting in South Africa at the moment of apartheid, torturing Black people and sending him to detention centers simply for being Black. And again, we can consider people's actions in terms of veracity or truth. And as the comments now, the moral judgment is negative, we could be using such expressions as dishonest, deceitful, lying, deceptive, manipulative, devious, blunt, blabbermouth. And in terms of propriety or ethics, what is good or bad in moral terms, we would use such expressions as corrupt, unfair, unjust, bad, immoral, evil, insensitive, mean, cruel, vain, snobby, arrogant, rude, discourteous, irreverent, selfish, greedy, avaricious, and I'm sure you will find many more. Again, the typical structures that we use to criticize someone's actions are those of the verb be plus an adjective or adverb, or a noun phrase including a good adjective to comment on someone's attitude. And this expression that we see in the example, that is an expression that we use to criticize or to comment, hypothesize on someone's attitude and actions. He should have done things differently. He shouldn't have done such and such a thing, right? And so this is the help for you to know what language resources, linguistic resources we may use to comment, to express moral judgment on someone's attitude, to be able to elaborate on different examples or exempla, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Questions? Are there any questions?
No, good from my side.
No,
Okay.
very clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Javier. Thank you, Victoria. So we may move on. Are we okay?
Yes.
Okay, so
Yes, perfect.
great.
Yes.
Bearing these ideas in mind, I will be working on a few texts. How would you comment on the behavior of the interviewer's attitude, to Emily Moore and her qualifications and job? Remember when we talked yesterday about why teachers are not those who can't? We talked about Emily Moore and the interviewer's attitude. How can you comment on the interviewer's attitude at the moment of the interview?
She was rude.
She was rude,
Yes.
very good.
Disrespectful.
Disrespectful, very good.
Non-professional.
Unprofessional, good. Other ideas?
Judgmental.
Very good, judgmental. In terms of what?
About her consideration, what she should have been doing instead of teaching because of her her degrees and the school where she studied.
Okay, very good, very good. And this apparent contrast that there is between her academic background, her academic achievements, and the job that she has chosen or that she chose, right, before applying for this new job, right?
We could say she was
Sorry,
entitled. Entitled, we could say she was the interviewer.
She was entitled? What does that mean?
That she thought that she was special, comparing herself to teachers, or she wasn't entitled to say what she was saying.
Okay, good. But did she use her these powers positively, you say?
No. I mean the interviewer. Now she was negatively being entitled to say something.
Good, very good. And as we said yesterday, what she said was well in the field as in underrating, undermining, and dismissing the profession, right? And this is also something that it's strengthened also, or it's present in other people's attitude to teaching in general terms, right? Yeah, I'm reading the chat now. It's very interesting. Thank you for the contributions. I see then another word from Lucas, unclassic. Good, thank you for that. Very interesting contributions, right? So this is talking about the interviewer in Emily's, in this interview that Emily is subject to. Was there a question or something? Professor Gatica?
There is a comment from Valentina saying the interviewer made a belittling comment.
Right, right, good.
Okay, and also what Lucas said, I'm classy, and I'm taking down notes.
Yeah, I know, I've seen that.
In class, so that students take the most important words that you are saying.
Very good, thank you very much. Yes, always remember to take down notes, right? It's very important. So so that our comments and our discussions are not left in the air. So you try to try to record something of what we talk in the classes, right?
Yeah, because these comments are not in the books, and they are not in the PowerPoint presentations that professors share. So it is very important to take down notes, and that is what I've been doing in the chat.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, in the same text, what can you say about Emily's attitude to both the job and the interviewer?
She was very confident when she had to reply to that question that she found very uncomfortable. And she is very clever as well, as she studied a lot.
But if you say she's very clever, she's very confident, are you somehow commenting on her attitude, or are these expressions that would describe her? These are some of her personal.
I think that the way that she reacted to that question kind of shows us that she's clever and confident.
Okay, so you might say that she had a clever response. Is that what you mean? That might be in the realm of judging. Okay, all right.
An intelligent response and a direct response.
Again, Antonella, I can't hear well, sorry.
Yes, she has an intelligent response and also a direct response, because I think she also was upset because many times people ask her the same thing, and she was already has a response for that.
Yeah.
And she was tired that people asked her all the time the same. So
very good, yes. She was tired of being exposed as someone who doesn't do well in teaching, right? Okay, right, very good.
There are people commenting.
Yes.
Agostina Munoz says, Emily gave such a clever and professional response. Carlos says, I think another option could be polite. Emily was polite.
Yes.
And Anna says that she answered professionally. She had always a response prepared because she's used to hear those things. Okay, she was used.
Exactly.
And then,
unfortunately, right?
Unfortunately, Santiago says that Emily gave a polite answer even when the interviewer was has a degrading behavior. And Javier is cunning or witty in her response. She was cunning or witty. I'm not sure.
Right.
But witty she was.
She was witty, right? Cunning, it might have a negative connotation, and I don't think that this is what we would like to say about Emily in particular, right? Good. Yes, we need to be careful as to not to choose such expressions that would describe her as a person. She was hardworking, yes, she was determined, but what in her reaction or what in her attitude in the interview tells us about something about her moral attitude to the interviewer, the interview, the job, and her professional choice, right? Because these are elements that we might be using in situations where we would ask you to write about these instances, right? And to write an example and consider the moral judgment, because we do that in daily life, even when we don't realize. We're not, of course, we're not writing exemplums in our life, but we do participate events and stories in life, and we make comments on people's attitude or behavior, even when we don't realize it. And the idea of the exemplum is to put into words and in a story, well elaborate story, these ideas, people's attitudes and interpretation of their behavior, their attitudes. Sometimes they're positive, some other times they're negative. All right? Can we move on?
Yes.
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 Okay. If you pay attention to the text that I told you we would be working on, you'll find text and activities in a Word document in the book that we published on exemplums. And the first activity says, read the following stories and mark in different colors at different stages in the story. So do you think we can do that?
Yes, yes.
The first story is this one
Yes.
based on the Diaries of Adam and Eve by Mark Twain. This is a story that you have not read. I'll try to enlarge the...
That was in the extensive reading material.
It's in the extensive reading material, language 1, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Maybe some have read it.
Again?
Maybe some have read it.
Yes. And I think that even when some might not have read it, the story is clear enough, we believe, to be able to work on it, right? But let me check. I'm not sure you'll be able to read this well. There. Okay. As I said, this story is in the copy, I hope. Yes, it's there.
Yes.
Okay. I may read it for you, and let's see if we can identify some of the stages in this text and some other elements that would contribute to the story. You do have strategies to elaborate on these texts, right?
Okay.
Eve, my new partner, has definitely, for those who have not read this text, the Diaries of Adam and Eve is some kind of satirical interpretation of the first man, the first woman on earth. And Mark Twain was very skillful in using irony, the innocence of the characters as the first two people on earth, right? In the history of humanity. Eve, my new partner, has definitely been the brain behind all this situation. She had befriended a talking snake a few days before, and I guess it was that filthy little reptile that convinced her of taking the apples from the forbidden tree. Although I had warned her that that was the one and only thing we weren't allowed to do. I knew it at once. The animals that were resting together in the fields became wild. Sharp-toothed lions and tigers attacked their neighbors, and they even came after my horse. I had only enough time to escape and hide when I realized the beasts wouldn't obey my orders anymore. She found my hideout and brought me some wretched apples. I was too hungry to refuse when she offered me one to eat. I knew she had eaten a fruit from the forbidden tree. That's why we were expelled. In a way, though, this experience has brought us together. I can't blame Eve. I'm sure she meant no harm. She's just too young, vivacious, and curious about the consequences her actions may bring forth. I won't say that she was right to claw those apples, because she clearly wasn't. But I can't help but wonder what would have happened if she hadn't. After all, her recklessness brought us to the place where our love grew. I've come to realize that I prefer being out here with her than in there without her. Being expelled was the price we both had to pay for my discovering that it was her being there that made Eden perfect. And wherever she goes, she'll take that marvelous quality of hers of turning any land into paradise. Okay. Is the story clear enough?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. In general terms, can you tell me what are the main events in the story? What is the narrator telling us about?
The narrator is telling us what happened after Eve decided to eat the forbidden apple.
All right.
Forbidden fruit.
Right.
Forbidden fruit.
Or the apple from the forbidden tree.
How things change because of that action.
Very good. Very good. Right. Okay. And as I said, the story is clear. Was it clear? Easy to understand, even if you had not read the Diaries of Adam and Eve? Was it clear to everyone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Why is it clear to understand?
No, maybe first of all because we already know about this story. It has been told so many times that
Right.
it is like an unconscious thing.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. It's hidden somewhere in your mind, right? Okay. Any other idea? What are elements in the story then? We know that, as you said, we know that they were expelled. Who are they?
Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve, right. Who's telling the story?
Adam.
Adam is telling the story. Right, very good. Adam is telling the story, and he doesn't seem to be talking much about his actions, but Eve's actions, right? If we had to consider some elements in the text, in the story, what elements would you decide to, what you focus on? We're talking about Adam and Eve, how they were expelled from paradise. What else?
Do you mean the
Why
stages?
they were expelled.
Can you identify stages?
I would say there is an abstract in the first
There is an abstract?
sentence.
Okay, in the first sentence.
Yes, Eve, my new partner, has definitely been the brain behind all this situation. That would be maybe an abstract, I'm not sure.
Right. So I think so. So he's going to concentrate on all the situation, right? Okay. And we don't know what the situation is about, but we learn about it. Is that what you mean?
Yes, it's anticipating something for us.
Very good. Very good. Right. Okay.
And we also know that this situation is because of Eve.
Very good. She's responsible. Yes, is that what you mean, Celeste? Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. What else? Where do we find that information then? Or what do we learn about Eve?
That she made a friend, a reptile friend, and that she took an apple from the forbidden tree.
Very good. Very good. Part of her actions, right? The idea of befriending a friend, having this new friend, the snake, a reptile, is something that Adam saw. And the others, some of the other actions are not something that he saw, but that he guesses because they know. He says, I guess it was that filthy reptile that convinced her. And I knew she had eaten the apple, right? Not that he saw her, but they had been warned that this was a special danger, right? Okay. So we know about the characters. We don't know much about Adam, but we do know about Eve, new partner. She has a new friend, the snake. She obeys the snake or listens to her. And she did something that was forbidden for them. Okay. What else?
Well, there's the incident. I think it would be from the sentence that says, I knew it at once. The animals that were resting together. Up from there to the point we get to his analysis that he says that's why we were expelled. I think that's the incident. Then we have another stage later, interpretation.
Let me check where the that's why we were expelled. Okay, here, I get it. I get it. So this is, you mean the incident. I knew it at once, yeah? Okay, all right. Good. I'm going to place it in, do you like this blue? That might be the incident in a way, you mean? And then it's the interpretation starts, you say, Javier? In a way, though, this experience has brought us together. I can't blame Eve. I'm sure she meant no harm. She's just too young, vivacious, and curious about the consequences. So what is the interpretation of her attitude? Is her attitude right or wrong? Would it be something that you would praise or that we would condemn?
It was
Well,
wrong, but he is
it's in the
just trying
middle.
to defend her, being like, she's too young. She didn't mean what she did.
Right. Yeah.
Being an understanding, maybe.
He's being understanding. Very good. Is he neutral, Agustina? Do you think that he's neutral?
She doesn't have a microphone, so she has to write.
Okay, okay. Would you tell me what she writes then so that I don't...
And I wouldn't say he's neutral because he loves Eve, so he can't be neutral.
He can't be neutral, right? But he knows that everything is wrong, right? He says so at the beginning. I knew it. All the animals were resting together, and all of a sudden they became wild and aggressive. The beasts wouldn't obey my orders, and then she followed her. She found her.
Agustina says he recognizes right, but he doesn't judge her.
Ah, okay, okay, okay. But he knew everything is wrong, right? Otherwise, he wouldn't have said this. I knew it at once. He did the only thing we were not allowed to do. So this is wrong, right? In terms of ethics, she acted inadequately.
And Anna says
Yes.
he is empathic. It is empathetic. Yes,
He's
with
empathetic.
Eve, and tries to see the positive side that they are together.
Okay, okay, that is the point. So he knows that she's wrong, she acted wrongly, but then he says, well, I can't blame her. I'm sure she meant no harm. She's too young, vivacious and curious, right? And then the consequences were better, yes?
He also says, I can see the PowerPoint, but he also said that he knew she was wrong, she wasn't right, but he can blame her.
Okay, good.
I won't say that she was right, but he also says I can blame Eve.
Very good.
So
very good.
there is a judgment.
There is judgment there, right?
Yes, there is.
Good, good. I won't say that she was right, and this clearly means she was wrong, right? I won't say she was right, this means she was wrong, because she clearly wasn't. But I can't help but wonder what would have happened if she hadn't. I think that in overall, she's considering their life together. I'm sorry. Sorry. Then she uses this, her recklessness, right? Her recklessness brought us to a place where our love grew. So he does talk negatively of her. He's saying she was reckless. But then this brought us good consequences in the end, right? So the comment on the incident is quite negative. She's not praising her. She's criticizing. But at the same time, she said, well, okay, I know she was wrong, but this brought us good results, right? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And again, this idea, the fact that they were expelled is a negative aspect of the whole situation. They were expelled from paradise, but then they had a normal life of love and joy together on earth. But I think, can you identify any other element?
When he says, "I've come to realize," and the following, that would be another stage. That's optional.
Yeah, very good, very good. And how would you identify this stage? What do you think this is?
It is
This is
personal interpretation of the character, of the situation.
Among the personal interpretation would be this idea of the moral judgment, right?
Yeah.
But if we consider or reconsider the stages that we have discussed in terms of stories, which one might be placed here?
Interpretation of the reaction?
Maybe, but we're not focusing on the reaction stage as in an anecdote. The reorientation. The reorientation. And why reorientation? You have a here that tells us that they are placed in a different place, different moment. Yes?
And we have a present perfect.
Yes, very good. Very good. After everything that happened, now placed here, not in Eden, not in their escape from Eden. Looking back in time, I see that it was a positive experience. So this is the reorientation. Yes, we are placed on a different moment. Here, opposite to there, and then interpreting, yes, in this reorientation, being expelled was the price we had to pay for discovering that it was her that made Eden perfect, right? So it's in this reorientation, an evaluation of the whole situation of their life together, both in Eden and outside Eden, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And then in the last stage or last sentence, wherever she goes, she'll take that marvelous quality of hers, turning any land into paradise. What is this?
Coda.
Coda.
Why can we say this is a coda?
Because it wraps up the story.
Very good, very good. The story started somehow talking about the situation they would be telling about, he would be talking about. He commented, elaborated on the actions, somehow commented on Eve's attitude, and then he would wrap up the story, right? Good. Good. We have a few more minutes and plenty more information to work on, but I think that we will be closing with a few of these activities. In text 2, in the copies, we have another text on Emily Moore. And we will see whether you can identify the stages, if there is some kind of orientation, where the action took place, where the sequence of events within the incident starts, what markers would you find, and which are the disruptive events, the incident, and what attitudes are focus of attention, how are those actions, attitudes interpreted. Should I enlarge the text? Let's see. Is it any better there?
Yes.
Yes.
Like many
Yes,
other,
it is.
okay, thank you. Great. Like many other teachers, Emily Moore was proud of her profession. Although her qualifications were, according to some, worthy of a doctor or a lawyer, she preferred to dedicate her life to the instruction of promising young minds, putting up with bitter comments as to her throwing away what could have been a remarkable career was no piece of cake. But Moore was confident and stood for her principles and beliefs. One day, during a job interview, the interviewer was surprised to find out that such a good resume belonged to none other than a school teacher. Why would Emily rather waste time, talent, and energy teaching when she had Princeton in her CV? Moore asked her interviewer who she would rather have teaching her children. Her response impressed the interviewer. She had never thought of teachers as the ones preparing her own children for the future. The fact that in the end she reevaluated her viewpoint didn't make the interviewer's attitude less disrespectful. Not only had she been extremely impolite, but also she had underestimated Emily's job based on assumptions. The interviewer must have learned a lesson of humility, not to let prejudice speak for her. Okay, is this a story?
Yes.
Okay. No? Okay.
I think it is.
Maybe it's an anecdote.
Why do you think it's an anecdote? Sorry, I'm sorry.
Because it says one day, it's something I would use to introduce an anecdote, and we have something that could be a disruptive event that is the response of Emily, because we read before that she has always been questioned of why in being a teacher. So the disruptive situation would be that, well, her response to the interviewer, I think.
Okay, and why would you consider this an anecdote? I repeat the question, Guillermina.
Because there's, I think there's a disruptive event or something sort of shocking.
Shocking. Okay, yes. And this is also special about other types of stories, not necessarily anecdotes. And do you remember what is special about anecdotes? What's the purpose of anecdotes?
To share an experience.
To share feelings or emotional reactions to disruptive events. Do we have that here?
Maybe there's an emotional reaction from the interviewer, but now I'm not so sure about my answer.
Okay.
There's moral judgment.
There's moral judgment. Okay. What's the moral judgment? Who was that, Javier?
Yes, sorry, I interrupted.
Okay, no, don't worry. Yes, okay. So what's a moral judgment?
It's an evaluation someone makes about someone else's attitudes or behaviors that we said before, and that's what we have here.
Okay, what is it? Can you place it? Can you trace it where that is in the text?
Yes. When in the end, we have not only had she been extremely impolite, but also she had underestimated Emily's job based on assumptions. All that. That is the evaluation of what the interviewer did.
Very good. Very good. So here is where we seem to be having this interpretation or moral judgment of her attitudes, right? There's something before that. The interviewer had reevaluated her viewpoint, but that didn't make her, see this here, didn't make the interviewer's attitude less disrespectful. That means he was disrespectful, right?
Yes.
So this is the first idea that we have in terms of the interviewer's attitude. And then
she was condemning.
Exactly. Yes, very good. Now, in response to what Guillermina said, yes, you're right, Guillermina. When an anecdote might start with this one day during a job interview, because it's a marker of something disruptive. But we need to remember that anecdotes are not the only stories that include a disruptive element or event, right? the difference between anecdotes and in this case exemplums is that in anecdotes the purpose of telling that story is to share the emotional reaction. So if this were an anecdote, we might say that if we focused on Emily Moore's emotional reaction, a possible reaction here which would have been which one?
Okay.
And I'm asking that to the whole class. What could have been or would have been a good emotional reaction in this situation under these disruptive, with these disruptive elements?
It could be that Emily felt very sad or upset.
Yes,
it can be
very
inferred
good.
from that.
Sad, upset, very good. At what she said, at what the interviewer said?
Yes.
Very good. Any other idea?
Disappointed, maybe?
Very good, disappointed, yes, because we might expect that someone trying to hire you would be more open to these differences, right? Very good, very good. Right.
Frustration?
Good. Also frustration, absolutely. And if we focused on probably the emotional reaction of the interviewer, which could have been an emotional reaction of the interviewer.
After Emily's response, or
yes, after Emily's response, yes, good.
The interviewer might feel ashamed of her words.
Very good. She might feel ashamed of her own words. Very good. Any other emotional, possible emotional reaction?
Of the interviewer?
Yes.
Well, she could feel astonished because she didn't expect that response.
Maybe regretful.
Very good. Very good.
And maybe she was surprised about Emily's response.
Good. Good. Surprised, astonished.
So she might have felt some humiliation.
Maybe, yeah. Okay. Very good. Humiliated or frustrated.
Humbled.
Sorry? Humbled. Very good. So those would reflect emotional reactions to these disruptive events. Is that the focus of attention of this story?
No.
No.
So is it an anecdote?
No, it's an example.
No, because the focus of attention and the intention of this text is different, is not to share the emotional reactions, but to share this moral judgment on the interviewer's attitude in this occasion, right? And we see that the author, the writer of this story would tell us that the interviewer the interviewer's attitude was disrespectful, impolite, and she underestimated Emily's job based on assumptions. So she was quite prejudiced in her actions, right?
Of course.
Yes. So can we see the differences then between the anecdotes and an anecdote, anecdotes in general, and exemplums, exempla in this case?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then this last line, the interviewer must have learned a lesson of humility, not to let prejudice speak for her. What is this element?
The coda.
Okay.
Coda.
All right. What is this line doing?
Wrapping up everything.
Exactly.
It's
closing
like,
the cycle, as we said, right? Very good. Yes? Okay.
It's like a reflection.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. It's a lesson of humility. It's a humbling lesson, right? Good. Good. So we try to identify some of the elements in this list, whether you've been able to identify stages. The author orients the reader in reference to who are involved, where the action took place, or when the action took place, yes, during the interview. Where does the sequence of events start within the incident start, right? There's this marker sorry, in the text, one day, right, during the job interview, this is where the action starts. The interviewer was surprised to find out such a good resume, blah, 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 but this is part of the incident, the disruptive event. He would speak quite unwisely about Emily's decision of working as a teacher. And so after that, we have this interpretation, comment on her actions, considering the idea of the moral judgment, how she acted in moral terms. She was disrespectful, impolite, and derogatory to Emily's job, okay? Now, we're not going to go on with the other presentation. So this will be the end today. You will find more in the documents that I've posted for you. You will find quite a few activities and elements to go on working on exemplums. There you will find the list of possible adjectives that we might use to express moral judgment in terms of in praising or condemning someone's attitude, showing admiration or criticism. You will also find these stories that we have shared. So now that you can sit and underline or highlight the different sections in the texts to be able to keep practicing and opening your eyes and your mind to this new genre that we have learned today. We have today and last week, we have learned to analyze it, not that this is alien to us in our lives, right? We often tell these type of stories and comment on people's attitudes, right? We have heard many of these stories recently on the news, on the papers, talking about politicians, talking about celebrities who act one way or another, and the people comment on their attitudes. Many times praising them, many other times condemning their attitudes, right? Exactly. The idea is that we offer different expressions for you to keep exploring how to express ideas, to consider someone's actions, attitudes positively or negatively. Not only saying that is good, that is bad, this is right, that is wrong. I have said, or I did say when we saw descriptions, that we should try to eliminate from our vocabulary the words
Hola, ¿cómo están, amigos de YouTube? Bienvenidos a mi canal. Aquí voy a enseñarles a ustedes la cual es esta, y aquí a mí así para este teléfono que le vendan a usted 10. Así que abajo en la descripción les dejaré enlaces donde la parte superior del teléfono, así que ustedes van a buscar esta herramienta, la cual está en la caja, y el manual nos dice que debemos tener mucho cuidado con esta bandeja. ¿Por qué? Ya van a ver ustedes por qué esta bandeja es muy curiosa. Es la bandeja para micro SDs y nano SIMs más larga que yo he llegado a ver en el mercado, y lo más curioso aún es de que nos va a permitir utilizar simultáneamente, como pueden ver aquí, utilizar dos SIMs o nano SIMs y también una micro SD.
Be asked to write an exemplum, okay? Yes, Ms. Gatica, tell me.
Okay, I wanted to invite everybody to try and write something and show us in office hours. You can have access to all the teachers' office hours. If you write something, you can share it with us and see if you have understood what you are expected to write. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Gisela.
Okay, Professor, thank you.
You're welcome. You have a few examples or a few ideas to work on in the. You will find them in the course of this analysis, but you'll also find some in the document that we've shared with you, right? Yes, Gisela.
Yes, for office hours, should we
send a message through Moodle?
Yes,
or
please.
something?
Yes, that would be ideal
Okay.
because we sometimes have plenty of time for office hours, but we don't usually open the session if we don't know that students are coming, because yeah, sometimes it's not that it's tiring, but it's also somehow dangerous to leave the camera on for 4 hours running if no one is coming to see us, right? But do practice, do study, revise the notes and work on them to be able to progress, find stories within the stories, find stories in real life, on the news, in your life, in the comments of people on the social media, right? And then next week, we are going to have our first oral presentation. Don't forget that. The TMAYs are on Monday. In class, we have to be, you have to be in class to give the TMAY, the presentation. We have received only news from 3 people, I think, that are not here for classes, so they cannot be on site. If any of you has not yet announced that you are not living in Mendoza and that you cannot come to the building for classes on site, either because you're too far away from town or because you have a health condition that does not allow you to be on site, do let us know. You need to send us a message, if a health certificate, if it's necessary, as soon as possible, so that we know how to go on with evaluations, right? Because we need to open a different possibility, but we need to know who cannot attend classes on site, okay? Have we covered?
Professor, I have a question.
Yes. Who's that?
Antonella.
Antonella, all right.
I would
Tell
like
me.
to know if the information about that "Tell Me About Yourself" or a presentation will be posted on the platform.
Oh yes. Yeah, go on. Sorry,
I
finish.
couldn't find it.
You couldn't find it? I posted it yesterday. It was already on the platform.
I think it is not available yet. The Tell Me About Yourself is not available yet.
Yeah, you have to open the, yes, but probably it's hidden in a book that where you cannot find it. In the book, which reads Why Teachers Are Not Those Who Can't, the last task, it's number 5, task for week 4. That's your presentation 1, Tell Me About Yourself. Maybe I should be posting that outside the book for you to see it, but it's there, and it's been there.
You're right, it is right there. It is there. I could see it now. Yeah. I will share the link.
Okay. Yes, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Now.
Okay, good. So you can spread the word also in case we don't remember to put it somewhere else. Yeah, thank you, Mayra. Okay. Thank you. All right. And I would also like to invite you to go to share, join the sessions by the teaching assistants. They told me that they've been in contact with you, trying to set out dates on the week when you can meet them. And they've set for 2 meetings, I think, during the week. Now, I hope I'm not wrong. They are offering 1 meeting on Wednesdays and another one on Fridays. So there will be only 2 sessions per week, and they will discuss 1 story per week, the same one on the 2 sessions, only that they offer 2 moments for everyone to be able to join them one way or the other, one day or the other, okay? I hope we've covered everything we wanted to comment on today, and we'll go on practicing with this. You have to keep working on your own. Remember that we insist on your responsibility and your own disposition of working on your own. We would like you to be more and more autonomous and we cannot digest things for you. You have to work on your own. Yes, we facilitate things, we accompany you, but you have to work a lot more on your own. Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, Professor.
Okay.
So the last question, because the
Sure,
connection
of
went
course.
off for a moment.
Yeah.
And I skipped the class on site this Monday, so I wanted to know the TMAY will be on site.
Yes, on site.
Not making a video.
No.
All right.
Not this time. No, not this
Okay.
time. All right.
That's all.
And
Right.
let's hope that you can all join us in the session. If you cannot, you let us know because of health difficulties or distance, right? And then we are hoping to finish on Monday. We can't, then we'll sort out how to continue with or finish with those TMAYs that have not been able to be developed on site. Okay.
Everything is explained in the task, so read it.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, a pleasure, always a pleasure. Okay. A pleasure, Carlos. Thank you all for joining the session, participating with questions, contributions, comments. We really enjoy that and like your participation. So remember, we'll keep insisting. So do participate. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have an amazing week.
Thank
Nice
you.
day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
You too. Victoria, I always like your day in the sun, your session in the sun. You know that.
Yes, vitamin D. I have a quick question.
Sure.
Are compulsory the TA's like
No.
classes or meetings?
No, definitely
Okay,
not. It's only a way to accompany you to discuss the extensive reading material.
because if not, I'm gonna have like a lot of problems with my working hours
I
and
imagine, Victoria.
so
No, but they are not compulsory at all. It's
okay.
only
So because
recommended.
last semester, last semester I didn't use them. So I was wondering if the semester it would be the same or were compulsory. That's why.
No, definitely not.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good.
All
Well,
right.
see you Monday.
See you Monday.
Preparing.
Take care. Yeah. Okay.
You
Good.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye. See you.
And one last question.
Sure, Santiago. Tell me.
Which words you said we have to suppress in our vocabulary? Because I haven't met you
You didn't see me in the
in
first term? Yeah.
in the university because
Okay.
I have the T3 and T4 classroom.
Oh, yes.
I don't
Okay.
know where you teach.
I'm on the biggest room, A8, on the second basement. Yes, and we haven't met in the corridors or stairs because I've met some of the students on the stairs. And it's wonderful to identify some of the known phrases, Santiago. So I hope to meet you, to see you someday. The words that I would recommend not to use, and it's because that we use them too often, are good, bad, nice, and interesting. They are too dull. You have.
I heard native speakers are tired of that word because non-native speakers use it a lot.
Use them a
So
lot. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Good. I haven't heard that, but it's this idea. They don't show much. I don't know, interesting ideas or the nuances or special details about people's attitudes and the like. That's why I recommend not to use them.
good.
I sometimes say that I ban them, but okay.
I just use it. Okay.
Me
So
too.
good, bad, nice, and interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Everything can be interesting. Everything is good. Everything might be bad. So let's try to use more specific vocabulary. That is the idea.
Okay. Thanks. Have a
You're
good one.
welcome. You too. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Okay.
Bueno, muy bien.
Muchas gracias. ¿Hubo algo en el YouTube?
El youtuber. Ay, escucho yo.
¿Cómo?
O escucho algo. No sé qué es.